We got a 5-pound bag here. We've got a 12-ounce bag. And we got a date today. Today is the 24th. Roasted by, it's usually initial. So let's say Scott's on the roaster today. So it'll be Scott Pedersen. And then it'll be a 12-ounce bag.
Is the roasted by, is that a legal requirement to add that personal touch?
It's just a reference, and it's kind of a personal touch as well.
True Coffee Roasters head brewer Scott takes trips of origin in order to learn more about where the coffee beans they're purchasing come from and to make a more personal connection with local producers.
Fill it up, and then we will fill up the bag. We seal the bag, and then we'll fold this down, and then we'll fold the tin tie, and then that's our 12-ounce bag. So this is Mocha Java. We got 9 pounds to do.
I'm ready to do this. I believe
Yeah.
that it's only going to take you a few minutes to realize my value,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get a raise right away. That's what
That's
I
okay.
think.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, we'll get you to 16. How about that?
16 an hour. So it's going to be about 4 of these.
Just about. And then the last coffee we'll need is Papua New Guinea, and blend it as much as possible.
This is cool. It's like really demystifying.
Take a piece of tape, and you can put it just right on the edge there. You can label that Mocha Java. So this is all of the profiles that go on through the roaster. We get through the pale stage, then we get into blonde roasts, and then into our light roast category, our medium roast, and then our dark roast. And then the first and second crack,
What's the crack mean?
the next expansion of the bean. So when we hit the first crack, that is going to be an expansion that leads into our light roast category.
Like puffs up, the bean puffs up?
Yes, it puffs up, and then it also, there's like a silver skin on the outside that pops off, which is called chaff.
Yep.
And the chaff gets collected at the bottom of our roaster.
Can that chaff be used as a
Yes.
product?
A lot of farmers like to use it for compost. A lot of farmers also like to use the chaff for like some of their bedding for hens as well. Oh, and we just donate that. But it's really cool though, because we can use every single stage of the bean for something. So the roast that we're on right now is dark roast. Within our spectrum, we're going to be aiming at 445 degrees. So this is where our dark roast is pulled. The lighter the roast, the more caffeine content. And that's only because of the amount of water that's in the bean. So the longer you roast it, the more water that's being pretty much vaporized out of the bean while it's being roasted. So that means less water content. Less water content means less caffeine within the bean. So the darker you go, the more caffeine you're actually going to lose out of the bean.
While I consider myself a dark roast man, I don't often find that I'm thinking about where the bean comes from or the subtleties in variety.
First flight is African coffees, and so we've got a nice selection here. We have a coffee from Burundi, and we have 2 coffees from Ethiopian, and then the final one is a Kenyan. The best part about cupping is to just really experience whatever is here. So these guys and their cupping team want to evaluate the coffees before we buy them. And we're looking for problems in the coffees, and we're looking for how it's going to fit the niche that we need it for. So it's like we're looking for the presence of bad, the presence of good, lots of different things. So all we're going to do is we're going to smell it dry. So you're going to bring them up to your nose. Just go through the first 4, but really all you want to do is expose yourself to whatever you notice. And some of the best coffees don't necessarily show a bunch on the aroma because they're kind of more subtle.
So going from light to dark, or?
Well, often what we try to do is go from either light to dark or more mild to wild, more moderate to more intense. One of my favorite things about tasting coffee like this is that we're looking for old friends to some extent, like especially, for instance, in this washed Ethiopian, we're looking for some really beautiful, soft, flowery fragrance. I like to just sort of move my nose over the surface of the coffee.
I need to hire somebody to wake me up like this.
Once we get ready to break the crust, you're going to get your nose down by the coffee, and you're going to kind of paddle backward with the spoon. Really, the idea here is just let the genie out of the bottle, get that first smell. You want to rinse your spoon in between each time. Push it back 2 or 3 times. You want to bring it up, a little up from the bottom maybe. Basically, what you're doing is anything you can do. You might put some foam on your spoon to get a little bit of aroma without really stirring it up too much.
I think we're on to a new self-care thing, guys.
A new untapped market. So here we go. We can partner up.
True spas.
Next step is to skim the top layer. Then come the sound effects.
You want to put some coffee in your spoon, and then you slurp it like hot soup.
It's making the noise important.
You have this thing called the olfactory epithelium, which is right at the top of your palate, and that's how we evaluate like all aromas. So even though it is a subjective thing, it's a totally objective thing up there. Like they don't all fit. So if you sort of breathe, if you slurp it in, so it might hit up there. God, he's good.
What made you get into chocolate? Why do you love chocolate so much?
Well, I can tell you that ever since I can remember, I've loved just really, really dark chocolate. You remember that baker's chocolate?
Oh yeah.
That your mom or your dad or whoever used to make brownies with when you're little?
Yep.
I used to take it and sneak it and eat chunks of it, and my mom would get mad because, you know, people thought it was bad for you, like it's raw food, like eating like raw flour or something like that. Like we weren't really schooled on how good actual 100% chocolate is. You know, so ever since I can remember, I love dark chocolate. It's really magical. It's just even being around the aroma makes you feel just euphoric. The Aztecs used it as a form of currency, the Aztecs and the Mayans, and it was used as, it's called food of the gods, right? Theobroma cacao. As a little kid, I knew how special this thing was. You know, now I've made a living out of it.
I can definitely see your passion for it.
Just outside downtown Madison, CocoVaa, run by Chocolatier Vada, tries to source their products ethically whenever possible.
Cocoa butter, that to me is the magic of chocolate. That's why I'm not one of these people that's like anti-white chocolate, because it still has cocoa butter in it. And if you get a good quality white chocolate,
I'm very much pro-white chocolate.
I like it because it's a really good carrier for flavor that won't necessarily come through. So I'm a big fan of using white chocolate. The secret to good tempering is time, temperature, and movement. So we're gonna wait till this gets down to temperature, and then what we're gonna do is we're going to just make some decorations for what we're gonna do tomorrow. Okay, so now bring it back together, because you don't want to spread it out too much because it's gonna cool down super quick. So right now, it's at 31.
And we want to go to...
We want to get to 26.
I'm going to let you take over.
Just like think of it like paint. And nothing really gets wasted here, which is nice.
Oh, you don't need to.
All this goes right back in the pot. I love how it changes. I think that's what I love about chocolate work.
I'm tempering the milk into the egg. So if I add all of the eggs to the hot milk, it'll cook the eggs. But if I add a little bit of hot milk to the egg mixture, it'll slowly emulsify with the eggs without cooking the eggs.
This is going to be a Turkish coffee panna cotta. It's cardamom and the true Ethiopian washed coffee infused into cream.
Nothing soothes the soul like warm, rich coffee and chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate.
With what you do and what you do, how do you make sure that you're sourcing your food ethically?
As a coffee buyer, as you taste your product, you talk to the broker that you're working with, and when you find a product that you like, you engage them, or when we find coffees that have over a longer period of time, we engage the importer to travel to visit the farmers to, see how things work on the other side and see, how the relationship between the farmer, the exporter, the importer, everyone who is involved, and down to the people working on the farm. Do they keep records? It takes time and it's an investment, but when I started True, just sort of like the concept that I had is like, in order for my business to be sustainable, it needs to be sustainable for everyone involved. So that includes the farmers and the supply, people working in the supply chain.
But does it include being concerned about the wages? They're vulnerable to changing prices that bring people in or out of business, and they're vulnerable to climate change that can really have an impact on them. Is there a way that when you deal with the brokers or the traders that you can ascertain if people are being fairly compensated?
Yeah, that's a huge discussion that's going on in the coffee industry right now. Farmers aren't making enough money and they're having to find other crops or find some other line of work if they want to make a living. And so importers and roasters are basically opening up their books. There's the coffee transaction guide, which is sort of like the first step to create the transparency needed from our end. And so as a buyer, I think you pick your relationships and you vote with your dollar.
You're focusing on flavors and flavor profiles, but also how things are made and where they're coming from and who's benefiting. How do you decide these are the products that I'm going to use the chocolates that you make are outstanding?
So I'm in a little bit of a different position than you are because I'm not making the chocolate. There are very few people in the state that are actually making chocolate from the bean to bar. And then in America, they distinguish us, chocolate makers and chocolatiers. So I'd be considered a chocolatier because I'm not making the chocolate, I'm getting manufactured chocolate. So, and it's tough because it's very expensive to be ethical, as you probably know, because you're going to pay more for more direct lines of trade between yourself and the producers. But it's good because then your producer is going to be getting paid more. A lot of the companies that I get my chocolate from are either really, really small manufacturers that are engaged in direct trade and they're making their own chocolate. What it comes down to is if you're trying to be ethical in the way you live your life and fair and just and not exploit other people, you have to do research. You really can't rely on labeling. You have to look behind all that stuff because the fair trade, the organic labeling, all this stuff takes certifications that cost money. And there's a lot of farmers living in poverty in both of our trades that can't afford that, and they don't have the lines. So I try to find, like, for instance, some of the chocolate. I have this company, Chocolat Madagascar. They're in Madagascar. Everything in their chocolate comes from the country of origin. They're owned by Madagascans. The people working in the factory are Madagascan. And I've got a direct link to them. So I think you really have to do research, and you can't assume because you're buying something from Willie Street Co-op or Whole Foods, you know what I'm saying, that it's all on the up and up. The consumers, we just have to do more work. We have to do more homework. It takes more time. It's sometimes more expensive. But if we really want things to change in the world, that's just what we're all going to have to do.
It is delicious.
Is it good?
Oh
I
my
have no
God,
idea.
yeah. Syovata, you were talking about the importance of both of you paying attention to your sourcing, and that is incredibly important. And I've been doing work with Oxfam America. And their main mission is to address poverty across the globe, but they look at issues like in the world of sugar, and I suspect it's the same in the world of coffee beans and or cocoa beans, land grabs where people who are in poverty but have this bit of land have it taken away without fair compensation by a government and or a large corporation for other purposes, and they lose their ability to feed their family and to earn their way. And Oxfam actually worked very hard with advocates across the globe, but as in the United States especially, and got Coca-Cola and Pepsi Company to look at their supply chain and to change the way that they operated. So it's people like both of you who insist that we have an ethical supply chain, starting at the grower, coming all the way to me, that really makes a difference. But it's the advocacy around that that can say there's a bigger voice than even us.
And I think just because of consumer demand also, so it's not just like people like us who are demanding more ethical sourcing and curious about the way things are being made, but it's our jobs also to advertise this is how we're doing business, to show consumers that there's alternatives.
This is
Oh my God.
There's not too much sugar in anything.
No, it's just so satisfying.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it just feeds the soul as well as the body to eat so well. The coffee and the chocolate go very well together. In every way. This is amazing.
If you guys want to pass the remaining desserts just kind of over to this corner, you can head out. Cheers to that.